Hey everyone, welcome to this week's free Epic Game Store game review. Today's subject matter is Murder by Numbers, so let's get to talking about it. Full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of the Ace Attorney series. The storytelling, the characters, the music, the objections, everything about it rubs me the right way. Hell, I named both my sons after two of the characters from the series, so I think it's fair to say that when there is a game out there aiming at being some kind of indie spiritual successor, sort of like how Freedom Planet is to classic Sonic, you better believe I'm incredibly optimistic. Not to mention, the game has raving reviews from game critics, and even features the composer of the most banging 47-second loop to ever grace gaming. It feels like a match made in heaven, and as a fan of everything this game portrays itself as, I'm uniquely qualified to give an informed take on this one. So this is the video all about why I hate it. This is a narrative game with one very specific logic puzzle designed to be the main content for the game. So there's no real way to judge it solely as a game with good game mechanics as most games are. Instead, style, story, music, themes, and well, the puzzle I guess, will make up the meat of the review. Let's get started with the art style. The opening cutscene is animated well enough, not very clean, but decent for what it is. However, once you get into the menu screen, it comes off as a little tacky. It's got the two characters front and center, with an instrumental version of the main theme you just listened to in the cutscene playing in the background. Bright and colorful, doesn't really set you in the proper mood for the subject matter, whereas basically every Ace Attorney game is quiet with mysterious black panels, very plain looking, with only the case names listed before you open a case. It feels cold and mysterious, kinda like a murder mystery. Well, how about that shit? We're not losing full marks on this, but it's clear that one set of developers had a much better understanding of how to set the proper tone. Then you actually get into the art style, and while it's not outright repulsive, I can't help but notice all the shortcuts being taken in producing the game world. The characters are basically just cutouts, and they have a very low range of motion, often using simple face swaps and little anime sweat and angry marks to show emotion. Feels kinda ugh. It's the bare bones minimum to get a point across, and clearly unlike Ace Attorney, it's not like there were hardware limitations at work. It's on PC for Jesus' sake. This added to the fact that one of the things that make indie games so special is often you can tell that there was a lot of effort put into making the game. It's inspiring to see how someone's dedication to their craft works hard enough to make a quality product and get noticed. Usually, indie devs work with small teams and subsidize the fact that they have small teams by spending incredible amounts of time on perfecting their games. So seeing these glaring shortcuts in how the game presents itself is incredibly off-putting. I mean, just look at the robot character Scout. In this art, you can see he has a play button like a cassette tape on his chest, but in this render of him, it's backwards. This is when I noticed that they simply mirror the characters whenever they are facing other directions in the scripted sequences. And it's all of them too. The detective's badge is now on the left side instead of the right. The dumb cop's pocket details are reversed. It all just looks so lazy. This is the exact thing you expect from corporate game devs with tight schedules to pull, not video game love letters to a genre that comes typical for indie devs. Not to mention it just destroys world cohesion, which is fitting because they have a character in the first case that explicitly talks about what a cardinal sin this is. So I would say hypocrite much. Or as the common euphemism would have you call it, self-aware humor. The story features you mainly controlling two characters, an actress who plays second fiddle to a more attractive blonde, and a robot named Scout who you use during the puzzle sequences. Girl Chan gets fired by her boss and goes outside where she so happens to run into the little toaster who can't remember anything. Because robots get amnesia, I guess. Then she goes inside to discover that her ex-boss is now ex-alive as well. After being locked into a break room by the detective, we are introduced to characters I don't care about, and you stay here asking random questions, listening to poorly paced jokes, and occasionally doing one of the game's logic puzzles. These puzzles, by the way, are how you're supposed to gather evidence as opposed to just, say, finding it and picking it up. What should take about 2 seconds is drawn out over a few minutes to solve this puzzle, and then scanned in to reveal that it is a terrible pixel representation of the item it is said to be. In most cases, the item discovered is immediately obvious to the character's in-world, and most of the evidence is never even used to solve this case. I mean, this is just a half-eaten apple. Why did I need to know that was in the fridge? let alone spend 5 minutes solving a puzzle to figure it all out. Most Ace Attorney games would simply just click on the fridge and a small text would appear and say, a standard refrigerator with a half-eaten apple inside. Must be saving it for later. Some flavor text to add to the world building. But this game wants to take 5 minutes to appreciate this barely recognizable pixelation of a half-eaten apple. I simply must ask, why? Why do this? It feels like the story was drawn to include this obviously forced mechanic, but it just comes across as jarring and upsetting to the pace of the story. Then the characters go through tacked on methods of trying to convince the player that they have motivation to solve the case, but it fails to convince players to care. Like, oh my god, the robot lost its memory, and I'm only thinking, okay, well, not my problem. Ace Attorney has a way of building the characters to where you sympathize with them, and the villain mocks you as you slowly uncover the truth, making you want to land that bastard in jail. Which brings me to how this game progresses its story. It gives you all the answers ahead of time and tries to convince you that you solved the mystery, where the game simply told you what to do. Why are they doing this? Ace Attorney understood that you just need to point players in the right direction, then they can figure it out for themselves. And if you write a convincing enough story, they will want to, just to find out what happens next. In this game, they just give you the answer like it's candy. Answer a multiple choice question and suddenly you did it. But these questions are more like asking you if you were awake for the last 3 minutes. Which is a challenge in of itself, because this game has more filler dialogue than the Naruto anime. Just characters talking about absolutely nothing important. And more often than not, there is absolutely zero payoff to these conversations. They simply serve to pad out time. It would be one thing if they were interesting, but it's cheap jokes and atmosphere just fails to satisfy. Oddly enough, one of the reasons the story's pacing is so bad is actually the funnest part of the game. While these logic puzzles serve to hinder the storytelling, they actually are fun puzzles to solve. The game does a pretty good job of teaching you logically how to beat and solve these puzzles, and once you solve a few, you can genuinely feel your brain adding in a few more wrinkles. If you think logically about the puzzle's rules, it's pretty easy to solve them without the use of hints. So despite everything that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth about this game, surprisingly the puzzle content isn't one of them, and frankly I have actually been enduring the atrocious story and dialogue in hopes of getting to the next puzzle. Weird how that works. Lastly, the music. It's alright. Nothing too special, but the puzzle themes are forever locked in my mind as it is a majority of what you're listening to while solving the puzzles, and they are kind of catchy. Find myself just hearing them out of nowhere sometimes. Almost a little creepy, actually. Well, anyway, let's head to the verdict. While this game is clueless about what made the Ace Attorney series so timeless, it's not so bad that it deserves to be ignored outright. I can't honestly recommend everyone try this game, but if you like puzzles and don't care much about a good story, then give this one a try. And that's it for Murder by Numbers. Next, we're going to take a quick look at Elder Scrolls Online, as it was also released this week on Epic for free. However, I'm not going to do a full video review on it, as it wouldn't be finished to get a proper verdict. So instead, I'm going to simply make a community post about it, and if demand has it that I make a full video review, then in time. For now, the next video will be on, there are two options here again. I guess I'll post a poll and let you guys decide which one. Results due Thursday, so keep an eye out for that poll. If it's a tie, I'm going to do the Severed Steel game, which looks a bit more my pace of game. And I will give whichever one loses the ESO treatment, so like just a quick snippet on a community post. Keep your eyes out for the next video because I'll be posting it soon. Until then, I'll see you later.